Veterans, what if the income that you're already receiving every single month, your pension, your VA disability, the paycheck you earn through years of service, could be the foundation of $1 million tax-free retirement? Not by investing in something risky, not by gambling on the stock market, and not by working one extra day longer than you planned. I'm talking about legally repositioning a portion of what you already receive into a safe, predictable growth vehicle that compounds every year, protects you from market losses, and ultimately converts into a completely tax-free stream of income that you cannot outlive, plus a tax-free legacy for your family when you're gone. So I'm Dan Farnsworth, retired naval officer, founder of Victory X Financial, and author of Retire Max Elite, the Veteran's Guide to Tax-Free Wealth and Financial Freedom. And we help veterans and military families build protected wealth, lock in lifetime income, and create generational security legally, safely, and without market risk. So in this video, I'm going to break down the exact strategy that we use with our clients to build $1 million of combined retirement income and legacy benefit. I'll walk you through what a tax-free retirement actually looks like for veterans, why taxes are the biggest threat that most people ignore, and I'll run you through the real numbers at different ages so you can see exactly what's possible for your situation. And stay with me through the end because I'm going to show you something that most financial advisors never talk about. Why having $1 million in a traditional account is not the same as having $1 million of real retirement income. And the difference will probably surprise you. All right, let me show you something. When we talk about retirement income, there are really three buckets. The first is taxable income. So things like a traditional pension or a TSP withdrawal, or even Social Security in some cases. You pay taxes on every dollar. The second is tax deferred, so traditional IRAs, for instance, or 401ks, where you delay the taxes, but they're coming. And the third is tax-free, so Roth accounts, and when structured properly, indexed universal life policies. You never pay taxes on the growth or the withdrawals. Now here's where most veterans stand. About 20% of veterans retire from the military and receive a pension. Now that pension is taxable income, but VA disability compensation, depending on your rating, is tax-free. So many of you already have one foot in the tax-free bucket. The goal is to move as much of your future retirement income into that third bucket as possible. Now here's why this matters so much right now. Most Americans agree that taxes are going up in the future. How much? Well, nobody really knows, but consider this. As of today, the U.S. national debt has surpassed $36 trillion. It increased by $13 trillion just in the last 5 years. The government has to pay for that somehow, and that payment comes from, you guessed it, taxpayers. So the goal isn't to avoid taxes illegally. Tax evasion will make you a felon. But tax avoidance, the legal kind, will make you wealthy. And for veterans, this is one of the most powerful financial moves available because you're in a position that most Americans are not. You have predictable, reliable income streams like pensions and VA disability, TSP savings, and the question is simply, are you using them strategically? Now let's talk about what tool makes all of this possible. So here's what we use, and I want to be very clear about this because this is where most people get it wrong. The strategy is an indexed universal life policy, or IUL, but not just any IUL, a properly structured, maximum funded IUL designed under IRS Code 7702 for maximum cash accumulation. And I'll explain why that distinction is everything in just a moment. So let's look at this illustration. The cash value grows based on an index. Think S&P 500, but with one critical difference from the market itself, and that is there is a 0% floor. So that means if the market drops 30% like it did in 2008 or even 2022, your account just gets zero, but you do not go backward. So if the market goes up, You participate in the gains, but if the market goes down, you're protected. And here's why this structure is so powerful for veterans. The reason this works is compounding without interruption. So most traditional investments have good years and they have bad years. A 30% loss in one year requires a 43% gain just to get back to even. Now that interruption kills long-term growth, and IUL sidesteps that problem completely. Now I cannot stress this enough. Properly structured is everything. This is not a product you just walk into the bank and buy off the shelf. In fact, most agents design these policies for maximum death benefit, which is the most profitable design for them. I design them for maximum cash accumulation, which is the most profitable design for you. And that means we minimize the insurance costs and we push the majority of every premium dollar directly into cash value. So when we illustrate these policies for clients, we project growth very conservatively, around 6.5% per year. Now that's below historical averages, which gives us a realistic and not rosy picture of what's possible. And here's the math that changes how people think about this. Einstein called compounding interest the eighth wonder of the world. At 6.5% steady growth with no bad years, you apply the rule of 72. You divide 72 by the rate of return. And at 6.5%, your money doubles roughly every 11 years. So 100,000 becomes 200,000, then 400,000, then 800,000. That's exponential protected growth with no markets required. But here's where it gets interesting. The age that you start changes everything. So let me pull up these numbers because this is where people's eyes open up. So let's say the goal is $1 million of accumulated value by age 60. Well, if you start at age 35, you need to contribute around $1,200 a month or about $15,000 a year, growing at 6.5% to hit that target. Now that's real, but it's manageable for most veterans with stable income. But now watch what happens when we back up just 5 years. So starting at age 30, that monthly number drops to around $800 a month. Same goal, same outcome, but 5 years of compounding earlier drops your required contribution by 33%. Now look at it starting at age 45. So to reach $1 million by age 60, that number jumps to around $3,500 a month. But if you're willing to wait to age 70 to reach the $1 million mark, it drops back down to around $1,300 a month. The key insight here is this: you're not racing against some arbitrary deadline. You're working with compounding. So the earlier you start, the less you have to contribute to reach the same destination. And every year that you wait increases your required monthly commitment. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Dan, I didn't start at 30. I'm 45 or I'm 50 right now. And my answer to that is the same thing I tell clients every week. Starting at 45 is still infinitely better than starting at 55. And the strategy absolutely still works. In fact, for veterans with VA disability or pensions or civilian income, you're often in a stronger financial position now than you were in your 30s. You got more income, fewer expenses, and more focus. That's an advantage. But there's still one more piece of the puzzle that most people miss completely. Having $1 million isn't the finish line. And let me show you why. Now, this is the part that changes how every veteran in this audience thinks about retirement planning. So let's say you have $1 million sitting in a traditional 401k or a TSP at retirement. Well, most financial advisors follow what's called the 4% rule. So they say that you should only draw about 4% per year to give yourself buffer room in case the market drops. Well, 4% of $1 million is $40,000 a year. Now, if you account for a 24% federal tax bracket, you lose $9,600 a year to taxes, so you're only netting $30,400 a year on $1 million. And if you try to pull more than 4%, well, you risk outliving your money. And this is the number one fear for retirees: not dying with nothing saved, but running out of money while you're still alive. Now, you look at the other side of that comparison. With a properly structured IUL, there are two things working in your favor that change the math completely. First, there are no taxes on the income because you're drawing through policy loans, not withdrawals. Second, because the cash value continues compounding in the background while you draw income, you can safely take 8 or 9 or even 10% per year without the fear of running dry. Now, here's what this looks like in a real example. So let's take a 40-year-old veteran contributing $600 a month through age 64. So that's $148,800 total contributed over 24 years. And by age 64, his cash value has grown to around 400,000. And starting at age 65, he draws approximately 40,000 a year completely tax-free. And if he lives to 85, that's 800,000 of tax-free income. And when he passes, his family still receives roughly 200,000 also tax-free. Now, the total lifetime value of that policy is around $1.6 million from 148,000 of contributions. No market risk, no taxes, and if he defers income to age 70 instead of 65, his annual tax-free income jumps to approximately $63,000 a year, still with nearly $200,000 for his family. Now that's the difference between having a $1 million number and having real, lasting wealth. All right, so let's make this practical. Here's how we actually build this for veterans. So step one is assessing your income streams, okay? What are you working with? Pension, VA disability, TSP, even a civilian salary? Well, all of these can potentially be repositioned in part to fund this strategy. So most of our clients use anywhere from $600 to $1,500 a month, which is money they're already receiving and just aren't fully utilizing. Now, step two is designing the policy correctly. And I'll say it again, design is everything. You need an agent who understands how to minimize the death benefit to the lowest amount the IRS will allow, which keeps the insurance costs at a minimum and pushes maximum funding into the cash value. Most agents don't do this because it's not the most profitable design for them. We do this because it's the best design for you. Now, step three is funding it consistently. So the policy isn't just set it and forget it. I mean, it has flexibility, but the more consistently you fund it, especially in the early years, the faster the compounding accelerates. Now, here's what you don't need. You don't need a perfect financial situation. You don't need a lot of existing savings. You don't need to take on any market risk, and you don't need to understand the deep mechanics of index crediting strategies before you start. That's what we're for. What you need is income, which most veterans already have, and a willingness to redirect a portion of it toward a plan instead of just letting it disappear into everyday spending. And that's the entire shift. Okay, so let's bring this all together. So you now understand what tax-free retirement actually means and why it matters more for veterans than almost any other group in America, especially as tax rates are likely heading higher. You understand why the properly structured IUL is the vehicle that makes this possible, how compounding without market interruption changes everything, and why having $1 million in a traditional account and having $1 million in real usable lifetime income are two completely separate things. But here's the thing. Knowing is only step one. The second step, the one that actually builds the wealth, is getting a strategy designed around your specific income, your age, and your goal. And that's where most people stall out. So if you're ready to see what these numbers look like for your situation, your age, your rating, your income, just use the link on the screen or in the description to book your free 30-minute strategy call. There's no cost, no pressure, no obligations. You'll walk away with a clear picture of what's possible and a custom roadmap built around your life. Look, you wrote a blank check to this country. Let's make sure your country's benefits write one back to you. So I'm Dan with VictoryX Financial. Stay sharp, stay ready, and I'll see you in the next video.